Imagine this, a teenager with a soldering iron sitting in a cramped garage in Kiev, building a weapon that costs $400 but can take out a $5 million tank. No fancy factory, no corporate boardroom, just a 3D printer, some off-the-shelf parts from Amazon, and the kind of desperation that turns ordinary people into weapons engineers overnight. This is the story of how Ukraine turned garages, makerspaces, and living rooms into the most innovative drone factories the world has ever seen, and it's changing warfare forever. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible military innovations of the 21st century. And it didn't come from the Pentagon, Lockheed Martin, or some billion-dollar defense contractor. It came from volunteers, students, software developers, mechanics, regular people who decided that when your country is being invaded, you don't wait for permission to start building. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button because we're about to explore how scrappy innovation is literally rewriting the rules of modern combat. February 24th, 2022, Russia launches a full-scale invasion of Ukraine with one of the largest armies in the world, thousands of tanks, artillery systems, attack helicopters. Ukraine is massively outgunned. The Ukrainian military has drones, sure, but nowhere near enough. Commercial drones? They've got some DJI Mavics and Phantoms that hobbyists use for photography. Military-grade attack drones from Turkey and the US? Those cost millions and take months to procure. But here's the thing about existential threats. They make people creative in ways that peacetime never could. Within days of the invasion, something extraordinary starts happening. Tech workers, engineers, hobbyists, they're flooding into volunteer coordination channels on Telegram and Signal. They're not waiting for the government to tell them what to do. One group calls themselves Aerorozvidka, or Aerial Reconnaissance. Another calls themselves Dronearmia. Sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, right? But these groups become absolutely critical to Ukraine's defense. They start with a simple question. Can we take commercial drones and turn them into weapons? The answer turns out to be yes, very much yes. Picture this, a converted garage in Lviv. There's a folding table covered in circuit boards, 3D printed parts, and tangled wires. A laptop is running CAD software. In the corner, a 3D printer is humming away, building drone frames layer by layer. This isn't a Lockheed Martin facility. There's no security clearance, no multi-million-dollar equipment, just a few volunteers who used to design apps and video games, now designing systems to drop grenades on enemy positions. So what exactly are they building? Let me break down the typical Ukrainian garage drone base platform. They start with commercial drones, often Chinese-made DJI models, or they build frames from scratch using carbon fiber tubes and 3D printed connectors. The brain. Flight controllers designed for racing drones, modified FPV systems so pilots can see exactly where they're going in first-person view. Navigation systems cobbled together from smartphone components. The payload. This is where it gets serious. They engineer release mechanisms, basically servo-controlled clamps that can drop anything from modified grenades to custom-built munitions. The whole system has to be lightweight, reliable, and simple enough that soldiers with minimal training can use it. Total cost? Somewhere between $300 and $1,000 depending on the model. Compare that to a Javelin anti-tank missile at $175,000 or a Turkish Bayraktar TB2 drone at $5 million. Here's what's absolutely wild. These garage workshops can iterate faster than any defense contractor on Earth. Traditional military development takes years. You've got requirements documents, committee approvals, multi-phase testing, bureaucracy stacked on bureaucracy. Ukrainian garage teams? They build a prototype on Monday, test it on Tuesday, soldiers give feedback on Wednesday, and by Friday, there's an improved version ready to go. One volunteer engineer told reporters they went through 15 different grenade drop mechanism designs in their first month. 15 iterations in 30 days. That kind of speed would make Silicon Valley jealous. So how exactly are these garage-built drones being used? The tactics are straight out of asymmetric warfare playbook, but with a high-tech twist: tank hunting. A $500 drone flies over a Russian tank. The operator, sitting safely kilometers away, guides it directly over the target. One release button. One grenade dropped through an open hatch or onto the vulnerable top armor. One $3 million tank disabled. The economics are absolutely bonkers. Ukraine can lose 100 drones and still come out ahead if they take out a single tank. Artillery spotting. Before these drones, artillery crews were essentially shooting blind or relying on outdated information. Now, real-time aerial reconnaissance. Ukrainian artillery can see exactly where shells are landing and adjust fire instantly. It's like giving every artillery unit their own personal satellite. Psychological warfare. Imagine you're a soldier, and you know that at any moment, a silent drone could drop a grenade right on your position. You can't see it coming. You can't hear it until it's too late. That constant threat, it wears on people. Russian soldiers have started abandoning positions, not because they're being actively attacked, but because they know drones could strike at any second. Swarm tactics. This is where it gets really sci-fi. Multiple cheap drones attacking simultaneously from different directions. Traditional air defense systems are designed to shoot down expensive jets and missiles, not swarms of $400 quadcopters. It's like trying to stop a mosquito invasion with a shotgun. Good luck. Let me tell you about some of the people making this happen, because their stories are incredible. There's a 19-year-old computer science student who spent his days before the war building gaming PCs. Now he's designing autonomous navigation systems for drones that can fly pre-programmed routes even if they lose signal. There's a former video game developer who used to program enemy AI. Now he's working on algorithms that help drones identify and track military vehicles automatically. There's a mechanical engineer who designed industrial robots for manufacturing. She's now building release mechanisms that can drop payloads with pinpoint accuracy. These aren't trained weapons designers. They're just people who decided their skills could help save their country. It's not just engineers. There's an entire underground supply chain making this work. Volunteers in Poland and other neighboring countries are buying components. GoPro cameras, FPV goggles, batteries, motors, everything you'd find in a drone racing shop. Then they're smuggling, or let's say creatively transporting this equipment across borders into Ukraine. There are crowdfunding campaigns where regular people donate money to buy components. A teacher in Germany donates 50 euros. A tech worker in California donates $200. It all adds up. One campaign raised over $5 million in a single month, all going to build garage drones. And then there are the soldiers actually flying these things. Many of them weren't pilots before the war. They were taxi drivers, accountants, farmers. They learned to fly using simulators, video game controllers, and sheer necessity. Some become incredibly skilled, pulling off maneuvers that would make professional racing drone pilots jealous. Of course, Russia isn't sitting still. They're deploying electronic warfare systems, jamming signals, trying to shoot down drones with everything from shotguns to anti-aircraft systems designed for much larger targets. They're also building their own cheap drones, often copying Ukrainian designs or buying Iranian models. But here's the thing, they're still thinking like a traditional military: centralized production, long supply chains, bureaucratic approval processes. Ukraine's garage network? It's distributed, resilient. You can't bomb a factory if there is no factory. Just dozens of small workshops spread across the country and even across borders. The drones are getting smarter. Early models were basically just flying grenades. Now we're seeing semi-autonomous features, thermal imaging for night operations, encrypted communications to resist jamming, longer range and flight times. Some of the newer models can fly 30, 40, even 60 kilometers. That's extraordinary range for something built in a garage. There are even naval drones, remote-controlled boats packed with explosives attacking Russian ships in the Black Sea. Same principle: cheap, innovative, deadly. Here's what keeps military analysts up at night. If volunteers in garages can build weapons this effective, what does that mean for future conflicts? The barrier to entry for advanced military capabilities just dropped through the floor. You don't need a multi-billion-dollar defense budget anymore. You need a Home Depot, an Amazon account, and people who know how to code and solder. That's both inspiring and terrifying, depending on who's doing the building. Western militaries are taking notes furiously. The US military is now running experiments with cheap, expendable drones. They're realizing that sometimes quantity has a quality all its own. The lesson? Innovation doesn't always come from the top down. Sometimes the best solutions come from people on the ground who are actually facing the problem. The Pentagon has spent decades and billions developing advanced drones. Ukrainian volunteers matched or exceeded their capabilities in months with a strushing budget. Of course, we have to talk about the darker side. These technologies aren't good or evil. They're tools. Today, it's Ukrainian defenders using them to protect their country. Tomorrow? Who knows? Terrorist organizations could use the same techniques. Authoritarian governments could deploy them against civilians. The technology doesn't care who's building it. The genie is out of the bottle. The knowledge of how to build these systems is now widely distributed across the internet. You can find tutorials, design files, even entire communities dedicated to DIY drone building. Interestingly, there's already a feedback loop happening. Technologies developed in Ukrainian garages are influencing commercial drone design. Companies are looking at these innovations and thinking, hey, we should incorporate that. The military-industrial complex usually drives civilian innovation. This time, it's going the other direction. So, what have we learned here? When people are desperate enough, creative enough, and have access to modern technology, they can accomplish things that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Ukrainian garage workshops didn't just build drones. They fundamentally changed how we think about military innovation, asymmetric warfare, and the relationship between high-tech weapons and the people who build them. They proved that you don't need a billion-dollar budget to make a difference. You need ingenuity, determination, and a willingness to try things that conventional wisdom says won't work. Whether this makes you optimistic or worried probably depends on your perspective, but one thing is certain: warfare has changed. The era of garage-built weapons is here, and it's not going away. The next major conflict? Don't be surprised if some of the most effective weapons aren't coming from defense contractors, but from makerspaces, university labs, and yes, garages. The future of warfare might just be 3D printed. All right, everyone, that's it for today's video. What do you think about all this? Is the democratization of military technology a good thing or a dangerous development? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button. It really helps the algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos.